This is Dr. John, and welcome to the Think Big Dentistry show for today. And I am joined by my marvelous co host, Marilee Sears. How are you, Marilee?
I am fantastic, Dr. John. How about yourself?
I'm doing well, thank you. Um,
Good. I'm ready to think big, ready to hear the big thoughts that you have going on between your ears.
you know, I really love our title, Think Big Dentistry, and you know, in visiting with people and looking back and talking with some young dentists in their career, people have a tendency to really think small. And that may be okay in some situations, but if you really want to thrive in your dental practice, start thinking big. And I'm going to just review merely our first three podcasts of this year. The
Love it.
first one we talked about was Let It Go. And with that, it's the theme Let It Go from Frozen is let go of what 2020 did to us. And now that we're in 3 months plus into 2021, kind of let go of what's happened to us the first 3 months. There's been a lot of political uproar and political division. And, you know, we need to allow ourselves to turn loose of the bondage, per se, that the pandemic has done to us. And there's just been a lot of peripheral spinoff from the pandemic that has held us captive and made a lot of people think small. And there's been some really great things that have evolved out of the pandemic. But one of the things that I've seen is people have a tendency to think small. So let's stop that. Let it go. Now, kick off whatever it is that you feel is holding you back or look at it. And we'll talk about that in a minute. But allow yourself to think big because there's great opportunity out there for us. A lot of people seize the opportunity of things that happened to us as a result of the pandemic in 20 and really, really prospered. And those people were opportunists and they did not let the past or the present at that point hold them back. So we talked about let it go. The next one we talked about here to there
Hmm.
with what you suggested was difficult conversations. And again, we shy away from difficult conversations because we don't like conflict. And we have fear of what may happen in that encounter. And that fear really holds us back. But as we talked last time, Marilee, fear is the phenomenal invitation for our ultimate bravery. And you and I both, when I said that, we both kind of went, boom, that is awesome. And it really is. Fear allows us a moment in time to make a decision. Am I going to seize my ultimate bravery or am I going to retreat? And the decision is yours at that particular point in time.
That still kind of blows my mind because I love that. And it leads me to that question of, when did I last face fear and how did I face it with bravery?
Yes.
Yeah. Love that, Dr. John.
So fear offers us that great, great opportunity to make a decision to go into bravery, which on the other side of our fear is a totally brand new us. So why deny yourself the greatest you? And in denying yourself your greatest you, you're denying the people around you your greatest you. So seize the moment and take that bravery and go with it. Then we talked about our last one was the greatest niche. And the greatest niche is creating what I feel niche dentistry. And it's looking at creating, taking that ultimate conversation, that difficult conversation, that courageous conversation, and developing phenomenal relationships with patients. And when we develop phenomenal relationships with patients, Marilee, it just opens up your practice to something that is so special and so fun. You're you have the opportunity for your highest production, your highest profitability, your greatest fun and joy, a fun staff, a fun life. And so learn the skills of communication. You have patients really open up when you have the courage to go in and have those great conversations. So high performance merely demands high performance thinking. And so with that, let's not deny ourselves. And so we go back and let's look a little bit more here. Um, Thoughts equal actions equal results. And so
Absolutely.
we talked a little bit about merely about our personal mind soundtracks, and that those are our beliefs about us, our beliefs about other people, beliefs about certain situations and whatever in our lives. And so how can we change those to where, again, it's like the 2020 pandemic, we have these belief factors that hold us back. And
Mhm.
there's a couple of questions that we need to ask ourselves about those belief factors, Marilee. Number one, is it true? Number th- number two is it helpful? And number three, is it kind? And if those belief factors, no, we answer no to one of those three, then we need to stop it. It's not relevant to us.
Time to change those thoughts,
Time to change them. Time to change them.
because otherwise the results that those thoughts are going to give us are not the results that we want.
No. And so we want different results, but we're not willing to change our beliefs and our thoughts, our soundtracks. And so when we change our soundtracks merely to where it opens us up and gives us the freedom to grow and experience life in a different level, then we can start changing our actions, and then we can start looking at different results. So higher performance demands higher thinking, and higher thinking insists that we stop these silly, stupid mind tracks or soundtracks that we have in our minds about ourselves. We are our biggest obstacles. And where
For
we,
certain.
yes, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%.
You've experienced it. I've experienced it. Um, I have, as we've shared, maybe I think I've had a hip replacement here about 2 months ago. And sometimes I let my mind go thinking, it's not been the easiest recovery um, that it could have been per my orthopedic surgeons. John, you're going to breeze right through this in 6 weeks. You're going to be out there on the golf course and yada, yada, yada. Well, here I am at 11 weeks, merely, and I'm still having to use a cotton picking cane. And, that's not my MO in life. And
Not
so,
at all. Yeah.
yeah. And at times when we struggle, that's when our silly mind and soundtracks come in. And so part of mine is this the new me? Is this the new me that I'm going to have to struggle with a cane, and for how long? And will I ever get healthy? And so again, I have to, in the mornings, I have to, put into my mind a positive attitude and saying, John, okay, my fear, okay, I've got to face it with bravery. So I've got to go at it, and I've got to do my physical therapy. I've got to do stretching. And it's not just once a day, I've got to do it all day to release the tension in our lives, but to release the tension in my legs and hip so I can walk easily. And so it's requiring consistent, persistent, tenacious action on my part to free up the muscles and the tendons to get rid of the stress, stress in our dentistry, stress in our life.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Takes
Uh,
constant tenacity.
so okay, what an incredible analogy, Dr. John, because you have something that obviously right now is taking a lot of your time and attention. And the truth is, with our soundtracks, they have so much power in our lives that
They
most
own
of
it.
us don't. They own us. That's exactly right. They drive the bus. I heard this quote, or I'll change it slightly to make it applicable to dentistry. But the quote said this: Whether you are struggling in your practice or the similarity, what dentists have in common, those that struggle every day in their practice and those that have the most successful practices in the profession, what they have in common is that they look around and they think, I guess this is what I'm meant to be,
Yes. Yeah,
right?
exactly.
That's what they have in
Yep.
common, right?
Yep. Yep.
Is that there are, and that is so true, that our thinking, our soundtracks, our patterns determine the outcomes and the results that we have in our lives.
Yes.
And there is nothing um, that takes more effort than changing those soundtracks. But the great thing is, there's nothing that brings greater results. So some people will avoid looking at their soundtracks because it takes effort. But here's the great news: that effort is the only thing that's going to change your results. At least it's the only thing that's going to change your results for good, right?
Yep.
And so it's kind of like the person who goes, well, I want to lose 50 pounds, but I don't want to change the way that I eat. Okay, you can do other things, but it's going to be a heck of a lot harder, and it probably is going to be harder to get to your goal and then keep it off if you're not willing to change the way that you eat. Like, that's going to be 80% of it. It's very much the same with our thinking patterns and the results that we get.
Yeah. And this is again where I like the title, think big. So, or think small. So, minimum input, minimum output. Maximum input, maximum output. And so, if we change our soundtracks about who we are, and oh, this is all I can do. This is it. This is where I'm going to be for the rest of my career. No, don't think that way. Change your soundtrack and retire it, write it down on a piece of paper, go outdoors, take a Bic lighter and burn that rascal, burn that ship so it can't come sailing back, retire it, then write a new one and say, okay, my soundtrack is this, is that I am a phenomenal CEO of my dental practice. I am a leader and I have vision. And I have a passion for that vision and I have a passion for my philosophy. Therefore, I'm going to lead my team and I'm going to lead my practice in a direction that is going to be extraordinary. And then what you do is you recite that day in and day out. You recite it in the morning when you wake up. You recite it at night when you get home. You recite it at lunch during your lunch hour so that you're constantly reminding yourself and you're just in your mind, just saying over and over again, I am a winner. I am a winner. I am a winner. We are going to make this thing happen. And so when you change your thought process to where you look and you can accomplish maximum output, it'll happen. It'll happen.
It'll happen. And guess what, right, Dr. John? It actually is so much fun. I think that's what we love hearing from the dentists that we work with, is that maybe I'll say this. I don't know if it's just as rewarding or possibly even more rewarding, seeing the money in the bank and seeing the way that they feel like they personally have changed,
Yes. Yes.
right? Because I think that's what I love, is hearing, you know what, the money's awesome, but the way that I feel, the way that I'm showing up in my relationships, the way that I'm interacting with my team and with my patients, like, this is awesome.
Yeah. And that is so true, Marilee. And that's one of the things about grit and people that are grinders and finishers is that they work with a passion, with such tenacity towards accomplishing their objectives in their future and their goals. And they do it without concern for the reward, that it just changes their own personal life. The growth of it, you just feel so good because you're making your dent in their world and you're making their world a better place for them because you're a better person yourself. And that's where, with my practice again, that's I I never worried about my numbers ever. I didn't have to. I just walk in and I was able to have fun developing the relationship with the patients, and then it just opened up. It just And so it was so much fun. I in the morning huddle meetings when I saw new patients on the schedule, I'm going, ooh la la, I can't wait till 10 o'clock when I get to meet Mrs. Jones? What opportunity is there for us with her? And when then after that, what is the opportunity for her after we spend some time working with her? And so that's what you get to concentrate on versus my production is not there. My overhead is up. How am I going to make this happen at the end of the month? How am I going to make payroll? You just don't have to worry about those things.
You don't have to worry about those things when you don't make it about yourself.
Correct.
Right. Because, and that's what I think the best dentists, the best professionals do is it's something that I've said before, and I believe it to my core, that there is a difference between worrying about what people think about us and being fully invested in what patients think about themselves.
Yes.
And when we make those switches and we have those conversations, just as you said, the greatest niche, our last podcast, you talked about that in depth. When we make that switch, everything else is like, it's like everything just clicks into place. It's like, like the combination unlocks.
It
That's the
does.
secret to everything.
It does. I have seen where practices concentrate strictly on the dollar, and the patients, they see it and they start peeling off right and left.
Mhm.
Your new patient growth will go down. Patients just sense that. And if you're wanting to have a very, really, really satisfying practice where you go in the morning and it's going to be a fun day no matter what, and you leave that afternoon and in the evening or whatever, and you've had a great day and you don't have to worry about it, that's what it's about. Um, and so when you put the patient first and you don't worry about the dollar, this is where we're coming around with this whole thing, Marilee, is trying to help the dentist and the staff appreciate and love dentistry on a different level by concentrating on the things that are important, and that providing value to the patients and value to them as people and dentistry, but also adding value to your staff people, um, friends, your staff companions. I said once in a little presentation I gave, and I, I wrinkled some eyes, but I said, if you can't love them, you can't lead them. And, some people, scouring at it and going, what do you mean? I don't mean fall in love with them, but you have an admiration, you have an affection for wanting to help their lives get better. And you look at them not just as a staff person, but you look at them as a um, companion, um, an equal, and helping their lives become better. It's a marvelous thing, Marilee.
And it feeds it's exactly why we decided to call this the Think Big Dentistry Show, right?
Yes.
That you cannot think small about your staff, about your team, without it having an impact on your practice. You
Yep.
cannot think small or stay laser focused on numbers and think that that's where you're what's going to make your practice grow. You have to have that bigger vision, that bigger purpose in order to truly lead. And effective leadership is, I think, the most important thing for any practice. And in
Yeah.
order to do that, you have to think big. I don't know of any amazing leader who just said, no, no, don't bother me with that. Like, that, or didn't believe in the people that he or she worked with.
Yes.
And we have heard before that we are the result, or something like, we are so impacted by the 5 people that are the closest to us. And if we're sitting around thinking badly about our team, oh my goodness, it's not serving anybody well.
Yes. And that's interesting. I shared that with my staff years ago, and I just retired middle of December, and through I had at the end of my career, I had the absolute best staff I'd ever had in my dental career, and I just loved them. I loved them as people, but I challenged them, and I shared that concept with them. I said, I'm here with you women, probably about 10 hours every day that we're here, and I said, just that is that I am the average of you. And I cannot allow you to be any less than what I want to be with myself. So I'm going to coach you. We're going to work together to where you feel like you are just right there with me, and we're pulling this train together. And we did. I was able to delegate with my staff, step back, let them do their thing, and I did my thing. They supported me, and our numbers were phenomenal, Marilee, just phenomenal.
Awesome. And let me ask, and were you guys having fun?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. We were having fun.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, so awesome. Dr. John, I have been able to witness it time and time again with your own team and with other offices, how you are able to see that bigger vision for the team, for the practice, and people rise. The right people rise. Let me put it that way. The right
Yes.
people rise
Yeah.
when you see them in that way, when you give them the opportunity to be responsible, right? To say, like, I trust you. I know this is something that you did with your team over and over again. They come to you with a problem, and you just kind of look at them and go, I don't know if you actually said this, but I think your response was along the lines of like, and I trust you to handle it,
That's
right?
exactly
Or how are you going to handle it? Yeah.
that's exactly what I told my staff. They'd come to me with a particular issue, and I'd look at them and smile, and I would tell them, you know how to take care of that. And then I let them go out and grow up in that moment and deal with it effectively. And when I gave them the opportunity to do that, Marilee, they rose to the occasion. And that is really listening in a different way and adding value to them as an individual and saying, I
Mhm.
trust you, go make the decision. And when they see that, when they know that I trust them, they don't want to let me down.
Okay, which goes so this past week I've been listening again to the 4 Hour Work Week, which I really love. For it, the 4 Hour Work Week really means it. The basis of it is what kind of a life do you want? Designing the lifestyle that you want. And there's something that the author says in this that you just said, that you stated so well there, Dr. John. He talked about how he was spending 10 plus hours, maybe 8 to 10 hours a day with customer requests and dealing with customer service issues. And he made this decision one day. He said, attention, all customer service reps. I trust you to make the decision.
Yes.
He said, don't come to me unless it is a problem that's going to cost over a certain amount of money.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And then he said, otherwise, I trust you to make your own decision. And what he said, he said, it was amazing to see how their IQs increased
Yes.
when I gave them the responsibility or I told them that I trusted them.
Yes. Yes.
Suddenly the people that had been coming to him with just the most nitpicky questions and problems, suddenly were finding solutions and creating solutions that forwarded the business, right? That benefited the business.
Right. That's true. We had a number that we put out, and I printed it on T-shirts for my staff, and it was 415, and the four stands for 4% of what you do gives you 52% of your productivity. It's taking the 80-20 principle, Marilee, and refining it down. So we said, you find your 4% and stay there. The other one was 1%, get 1% better every day. And if we do those two things, we're going to lower the practice turnover to 5% or less per year. Now, the average dental practice, as you know, changes about 15 to 20% every year. It rolls
That's
over.
right. It rolls over, meaning that they lose 15 to 20% of the patients within their practice every year.
Yes. And so,
Yes.
making up that 15 to 20% can be a little bit difficult at times. And if you're not managing things well and you don't have your systems and your culture in your practice, you're going to be a negative net growth per year. So by looking at that 4% and practicing in that every day and getting 1% better every day, we were able to get our practice down to where we lost 5% or less of our patients per year. And so your practice will automatically continue to grow. And it's like when we turn things over to staff, and I'll this one may drive a couple of dentists nuts, but my front desk would come to me and say, well, Mrs. Jones, she just doesn't want to pay her bill. She owes, like, let's give a big number, like $1,500, and she's just being obstinate about it and whatever. And I would look at my front desk person and say, okay, Melissa, you know how to handle this. Okay, now this is where the dentists are going, yeah, no, you didn't do that, did you? So I let Melissa go up and handle it. And if Mrs. Jones wants to pay me that over 15 months, over 24 months, I'm okay with that. If Melissa was able to get 50% of that today, and then we wrote off the rest, that's okay. The reason I look at that way, Marilee, is we're investing in a relationship with that patient. And I'd much rather have that patient stay with the practice. It costs less to keep your patients than to go out and market and bring them in. But then also they become an advocate. They become a missionary for your practice. So what is the net gain for me? Think big picture of keeping that patient. If I lose $750, so what? In comparison to the
Oh,
big picture.
okay. And I want to call everyone that's listening right now, because I think this might bring up some soundtracks. I'm just being serious. Something like what that like, I'm so curious. I'm just going to ask everyone that's listening to stop right now and think, what is the soundtrack that you have in your mind? If you had a patient owed you $1,500, didn't want to pay it, and with what Dr. John just said, because what you said, Dr. John, is exactly right. It's about the big picture. The second part is it's about the relationship,
Yeah.
right? And when we get into the unfortunate habit of thinking that it's always about the money, we miss out on both of those things. We miss out on the big picture of what could bring in a whole lot more money, because not just as Mrs. Jones leaves, but Mrs. Jones takes her husband, and Mrs. Jones takes her son-in-law, and Mrs. Jones, right? There's the other impact. She tells her neighbor that she shouldn't see you. And then that relationship is severed, right?
Yeah,
And that's,
exactly.
I feel like for me, and this obviously has taken some growth. I'm going to tell you, I'm still not perfect about it. That's for sure. But I can tell you, in working with practices, those that are willing to actually take in the negative feedback from patients, not from a place of like, oh, we're awful, we're terrible, we should, but just to say, okay, what could we have done better here?
Yes.
Right? How can we adjust to make, okay, if Mrs. Jones is feeling this way, I wonder if this is something that's happening in other scenarios. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
how can we deal with this better? That really decide to look at this in again, that big picture way. Those are the practices that continue to succeed. Whereas those
Yes.
that go, okay, we're doing everything right, Mrs. Jones is wrong, dismiss her from the practice, they're going to continue to struggle because they're not growing, they're not thinking bigger.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
And one part of that, Marilee, also, there's more to that story, is that Melissa comes to me and says, okay, this patient owes us $1,500. So what I know immediately is that we didn't do our job up front in the first place,
Mhm.
because we should have had total clarity in the financial arrangements with them. And normally $1,500, maybe it's a part of a cosmetic case or something where, it was like $20, 20,000, and she still owes 15. We normally have prepay. So what Melissa is sharing with me is that she didn't do the part up front and get total prepay. And so then it's like, okay, you've dug the hole, you go figure it out in a way that represents me and our practice well with that patient, to get a resolve to where she is a happy person and we maintain that relationship. Because Mrs. Jones has sisters, brothers, family members, neighbors, whatever, that may very well look at her smile and go, wow, that's beautiful. Where did you get that done? Oh, go to him. And by the way, they are very good people. They are there to help you and make this thing happen. They will take care of you. So that's what's important to me. So I invested, $750 in a marketing plan with Mrs. Jones. Is the way I look at it.
That's a great way of looking at it. That is, and this is, I think, the concern, and maybe it's a soundtrack that dentists might have, is that we can't convert those patients that have disagreements, those patients that are unhappy. We think they can't be pleased. I'm not gonna say that there are not some patients that can't be pleased, but those patients that might have that tend to voice their disapproval or their dissatisfaction, if you can turn them around, they tend to be the biggest proponents of the practice,
They are.
right?
They
They
are.
are.
Uh,
Yes. Yeah.
some way or another, merely through that transaction, they feel valued. And
Exactly.
it's all affirmation of you as a person and that you feel valued. And, that's kind of the bottom line with it. And that's one of the differentiators is, listening to people, building that relationship, having a great conversation with them. You overcome the issues, boom, the relationship is maintained and everybody is happy. And
Awesome.
that's the way I look at it, bottom line. So, putting all this together, Marilee, where does what we're talking about relate to dentistry? I made some notes here. It's a richer, fuller life at the office. We're looking for a stronger team that we can delegate with confidence and know that they're going to get things done. And maximum production, maximum productivity, simplicity of your day, decreased stress. You put your dent in the universe and you change patients' lives. Now, and you go home and you're happy and you work 3 days a week. You put in 24 hours patient contact. I mean, that's pretty much fun. That's pretty much fun. That's what we want the people that are listening to this to do. So
Because there's truth in that. Work smarter, not harder. And
oh,
how you get there is by thinking differently and thinking bigger.
yep,
And that's our favorite thing to help dentists to do.
that's it.
Because I think the biggest concern is I have to work harder than I'm working right now, and I can't work any harder. And
Yep.
the truth is you just have to work differently, and it's so much more fulfilling and fun, and you can reap the same rewards so often in less time in the office. Isn't that awesome?
No, you don't have to do that. And that's one of those soundtracks. Gosh, I worked 5 days a week and I plateaued and I see absolutely no way of increasing my production or my profitability. I just don't see it. Well, there's another way. And that's why we're sharing all of this. There is another way. And we want to help you enjoy your life and enjoy your dental life. So there we are,
It's,
Marilyn.
Dr. John, thank you for always thinking big, for setting out such an incredible vision for dentistry. And I know we get contacted even professionals from other fields, are listening in on this too, but we especially just have a heart and a love for dentistry. And so
We do.
as you feel called to a bigger vision for your practice, make sure to reach out to us. Our contact information is under the podcast, and we love helping you think bigger and get bigger results.
You betcha. And we look forward to sharing with you more information on our next podcast. So join us and follow us, and let's have fun on the journey.